Well, that was certainly a bit of a rough week for those of us who live in Central Florida. Hurricane Milton came through and left another path of major destruction, particularly for our friends over on the West Coast and even the East Coast. It looked like Volusia County actually had a tremendous amount of wind as well. A little less storm surge than maybe what was originally predicted, so that's good. But definitely a lot of wind and a lot of damage as you travel around. Certainly Hurricane Milton was a powerful and unfortunately deadly storm that just wreaked tremendous havoc across the board. I'm sure most of our listening audience, if you are not catching the show live on Sunday mornings, that probably means you're one of two places. Hopefully church, I guess that would be number one. Or number two, you are still picking up your yard from the debris that Hurricane Milton left in its path. We hope that at the end of the day, you're able to stay safe and life is returning, I guess, to maybe a little bit more normal. Although, again, some of these folks over on the West Coast, it's going to take a long time before that can be said. On this week program, we're going to talk a little bit about 4 key elements of a good estate plan. You know, whether an estate plan is simple or complex, there's 4 unique goals or 4 unique questions, if you will, that you need to answer really almost before you start going and sitting down and having documents drafted. So this is almost what you want to think about these 4 questions as sort of the pre-work, the homework to do before you sit down and start ultimately drafting up your estate plan. So we'll go through what those 4 questions to make sure that you're asking and answering yourself as you think about your estate plan. Plus, do you know where all your retirement funds are? Most recent estimate says that there are 24 million forgotten 401k accounts holding assets in excess of $1.3 trillion. Is one of those 24 million accounts out there that have been forgotten yours from a prior employer? Well, we'll tell you how to track it down. And once you find that missing money, what you then need to do with it once it's found. So this is all coming up here on Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We're one of Central Florida's longest running radio programs, also coming to you on a host of stations throughout the Central Florida region. In addition to that, we're a top 25 financial planning podcast on the big wide world web. World Wide Web? World Wide Web. That's it. Anyway, my name is Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary at Nelson Financial Planning, where we've got a team of great folks, all of whom happen to be certified financial fiduciaries as well, and they stand ready to help you improve your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan. So you may not have seen this story this past week because, well, you could basically not have had power and might still not have power. And so if you don't have power, you don't have internet. The good news is, I guess, like from our perspective, the office was up and running, no loss of power or anything like that, which is surprising. But if you had internet access and you were able to kind of continue to scroll the headlines, you might have stumbled upon this article out of the Wall Street Journal in the personal finance section. It's entitled "The IRS Tax Refund Checks Keep Getting Stolen in the Mail." The article goes on to talk about the theft out of your mailbox, particularly of these IRS refund checks, is becoming so rampant that members of Congress are, and you know it's getting rampant if the folks in Congress actually decide to do something about it, right? They're calling on the IRS to do more. Now, the vast majority of tax returns that are filed with the IRS, over 90%, go with direct deposit, which clearly is the option that we recommend. It really is okay to share your bank information. I sometimes hear that, I don't want to share my bank information with the IRS, to which my standard response, and it's meant to be light in humor, I guess, but also to make the point, pretty sure the IRS knows kind of everything about you. So what's sharing your bank information? What more is sharing your bank information? They already know it anyway. So the reality is, though, that when you do direct deposit, you obviously eliminate the notion of somebody stealing your refund check out of the mail. Plus, let's not forget, your direct deposit refund is much, much faster than if you're waiting to get a check in the mail. But unfortunately, nearly 10 million paper refund checks are sent. The reality is important to go with that direct deposit. Here's the problem that the article talks about. And the problem is that you can't switch. Once you decide, hey, I'll take the paper check, you can't go back in some online portal or whatever with the IRS and say, I'm going to switch over to direct deposit. Once you elect to receive a paper check for your refund in that particular year, you are stuck with that choice, and there's no ability to change that. Now, the IRS has said, we're working on a technology fix for that in order to get that on its way and ultimately generate a little bit more of a fix, but that would allow people to sort of switch their preference. But unfortunately, we're talking about the IRS, so guess what that means? It's still probably years away before you will have that option. So make sure that you are electing that direct deposit information. Multiple reasons for doing that. First and foremost, what we always talk to clients about is, hey, you're going to get your refund much faster, right? Particularly with the mail service these days, it takes a long time. So that's always a good thing and always a good reason to do it. But the article out of the Wall Street Journal certainly does point out that there is another reason, or a growing reason, and that is simply the number of IRS tax refund checks that are getting stolen out of people's mail. If you're getting direct deposit, obviously that eliminates the possibility of getting that paper check stolen. So certainly some things to consider, particularly when you think about how this might play out. So folks, if you're doing your taxes, make sure that you are electing that direct deposit, because you can't change it once you do that, or the ability to change it is still years away. And then that will allow you to get your refund faster and eliminate the notion of getting your check stolen out of the mail. In addition, our book, Next Gen Dollars and Cents, available just this past month now as an ebook. So if you're one of those folks that likes your e-reader and likes to use your e-reader rather than getting a paper book, now you've got the opportunity to do that. Either you can go to Amazon, and there, I think it's like $4.99 on Amazon. We've got some free coupon codes at the office, so if you're interested, you can always call the office and get that free coupon code as well to get your free copy of Next Gen Dollars and Cents. Starting to run some ads that suggest that it's a great holiday gift, and if it's free, that makes it an even better holiday gift. Why not give the gift of financial success to a loved one? With that, we're going to wrap it on up and continue on after these messages here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning. We've certainly seen the passing of assets from one generation to the next create sort of a multitude of problems. In the 25 years we've been doing this, the stories are just numerous in terms of where assets going from one generation to the next, or sort of one person to the next. A lot can happen on the way, and it's just shocking about how much isn't addressed or how quickly money can get spent, or how often people argue about money, particularly when someone passes away. The key thing to a good and successful estate plan is to make sure that you answer 4 key questions before you even really sit down and start to draft up your estate planning or estate planning documents, however you're doing that. Maybe you're going online and using one of those online services. Maybe you're going to a lawyer. Before you even kind of get to that stage, there's 4 key questions that you need to be asking yourself in order to try and minimize some of these horror stories, because those questions and how you're going to answer them really do help to create not just a good estate plan, but also a successful one, where the assets aren't getting pushed to somebody that you might not even know at this point in life. So welcome on into the program. This, of course, is Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. One of Central Florida's longest running radio programs, coming to you on a host of stations throughout the Central Florida region. Also a top 25 financial planning podcast. So if you're one of those podcast folks, or for that matter, video folks, you can check us out on your favorite podcast platform or our YouTube channel at Nelson Financial Planning. Any problems finding us? Well, go to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. There you'll see a bunch of icons. Click on the ones that look most familiar to you, and you will get instantly connected to our particular channel on your favorite podcast platform. My name, of course, is Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary at Nelson Financial Planning, where we help you improve your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan. So, you've all heard the horror stories, right? I mean, of what happens when people die. Literally, they've made like countless movies about this very topic. And the stories are just horrific in terms of who could potentially wind up with the money, how the money's spent, how quickly the money's spent. And so really there are some questions that you want to be asking yourself before you kind of even get to the stage of starting to draft up documents that really you need to address to make sure that your life doesn't turn into a script for a movie. So we're in this segment of the program, we're going to give kind of those 4 key questions to sort of pre-answer, to do your homework on, so that when it comes time to drafting those documents, then ultimately you're able to increase the likelihood of those being successful in terms of what you actually want to accomplish. So the first question to ask: is your plan going to empower someone to act on your behalf? Look, the reality is when we think about estate planning, there's a lot of different roles and names that sort of fall into this category of where you've got somebody else that's going to act for you. Think of a power of attorney. When you name an agent in that power of attorney, that person then has the ability to act on your behalf. In the case of a power of attorney, that's when you're still alive. Once you die, the power of attorney disappears and is no longer valid, because then things like the executor pick up in terms of the responsibility and their authority to sort of quote unquote act in your capacity. Similarly, if you've got a trust, a trustee might have the ability to act in your capacity, whether you're alive or dead, right? And if the situation is that you are not mentally competent, you're still alive, but not able to act, so then the trustee would act in your place. And then the other one that comes up is medical decisions, right? Healthcare surrogates, those kinds of things. So think of all those different types of roles. I mean, there's just 4 that we just kind of rattle off real quick. Those are situations where people are going to act on your behalf. And in a good number of them, you're still here on this good earth. So certainly each role, though, is very different and operates differently at different times. And you need to make sure that who you're naming is the right person that's going to make the best possible decision in your interest, but also that they understand and comprehend what that decision is that you would like them to make, right? A lot of times, sort of the standard forms don't really have a lot of details. For example, if you think about the healthcare surrogate, that just provides for a person to make health-related decisions, but often not specific decisions in terms of those types of decisions that you might want to consider some kind of a personal directions letter with specifics about what to do in this particular case. Look, if you're from Florida, you may very well remember a situation where this became front and center and actually became a national issue if you think back to the Terry Schiavo case, right? So at age 26, unfortunately, Terry had a cardiac issue. She was a resident here in Florida. Just a sad turn of events, or a sad 7-year, being a 7-year protracted court battle that basically pitted her husband against her parents. Had there been some kind of a personal directions letter of some kind, then maybe that could have been prevented. Maybe that whole saga could have been more easily addressed. But that's a great example of one that we have certainly seen. And if you don't remember the 90s, you Google Terry Schiavo and it'll pop up. Wikipedia will tell you all about it. The reality is that it really is a tough set of circumstances. And I think that case illuminates the importance of having specificity, the importance of naming the right person, all of those things. And so that goes to that first question, okay? Does your plan empower someone to act on your behalf? And is that the right person? And do they have enough guidelines in order to be able to make these decisions as effectively as they can? That's question number one. Number two is, does your plan, or will your plan, ensure that your assets go to the right people? So guess what? If you are married, been married all your life, you're one marriage, and you've got kids with that spouse, okay, maybe that's pretty simple. But that's kind of unique. That's probably the minority of households these days. Today's world, it's, with divorces and remarriages and domestic partners and children from prior relationships and children going through divorce. And you get it, okay? There's a lot of different types of relationships that can come into play. And it's pretty easy to see how, right, these assets could wind up in the hands of someone that you might not want them to wind up with your money. And at the end of the day, you might not have ever met. If you think about how all of this can spin itself out over the course of time and decades and marriages and kids and divorces and remarriages, and you get the picture. So to really think through that as to who do I want to ultimately get these assets, who are the right people to get my assets, and how do you then address that to make sure that those right people not just get the assets, but retain those assets going forward? So that's question number two to be asking yourself in terms of these questions, to make sure that you are addressing what needs to be done as you put together your estate plan. We got the two others, and we're going to tackle those when we come back after this break. So stay tuned with us here on Dollars and Cents with your host, Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning, as we continue the conversation about the 4 key questions that you need to answer before you start your estate planning. Coming up next here on Dollars and Cents. So we're talking about the 4 questions that you need to answer, sort of like as pre-homework, if you will, before embarking on the process of creating an estate plan. In the last segment, we talked about the first 2. This segment, we're going to talk about the next 2. The first 2, number 1, Does your plan empower someone to act on your behalf? Is that the right person? And do they have enough guidelines in order to make sure that they are acting effectively? There's a host of different roles that people can serve when it comes to your estate plan. So make sure that it's the right person and they've got enough parameters in which to make sure that your desires are going to be implemented. And then number two, does the plan that you are creating ensure that the assets are going to go to the right people? Think about it in today's world, right? Divorces, remarries, children going through divorces, children from prior relationships. Hey, that's a whole lot of factors to put into that mix. Who do you really want to make sure that gets your assets, and how do you make sure of that continuing after you're gone? And how do you make sure that that's going to happen against the backdrop of everything that happens in today's modern world? So those are the first two questions that we covered in the last segment. This segment, we're going to kind of tackle the next two here on dollars and cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We're one of Central Florida's longest running radio programs, coming to you on a host of stations throughout the Central Florida region, also a top 25 financial planning podcast. To learn more about Nelson Financial Planning and what we do during the course of the week, Monday through Friday, visit our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. When you're there, you can schedule an absolutely free conversation. We've always been big proponents of sitting down and having conversations with people, no matter the amount of money that they have. One of the things that makes us unique is we don't have any account minimums. Why? Well, because we believe in actually helping people, not helping you only if you have a certain amount of money. My name, of course, is Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary at Nelson Financial Planning. So back to the other two questions to be asking yourself in sort of this pre-homework, getting my thoughts together on my estate plan. So we're up to number three. Does your plan ensure that your assets are distributed at the right time? Remember, that second question was, is it going to go to the right people? This question asks, okay, is it going to go at the right time, right? Because there's multiple issues there. Maybe they're too young, or maybe they're too old, in terms of where they are in the spectrum. Other issues involve them not maybe handling money all that well, or even worse, maybe they've got a dependency issue, things like that can create a series of bad decisions when it comes to getting a chunk of money. And then the notion of circumstances changing, some of which can certainly occur after you pass away. So that next question has to deal with the right time, making sure that things are done at the right time. So you've got the right people, question 2, right time, question 3, question 4. Does your plan deny access to the wrong people? So this would be a situation where you've pay estate tax, and then it goes to someone, and then they wind up paying estate tax on the same assets as well, right? So wrong people can also mean the IRS and the U.S. government. And so one of the things that you've got to be careful of is making sure that you're not having assets that already paid an estate tax that then the next generation or the subsequent generation winds up having to then pay another estate tax on them as well, or assets get lost in the event of a divorce, right? Or you've got a beneficiary of those assets that files for bankruptcy, or maybe faces lawsuits or creditor claims. All of that, certainly, those would be the wrong people that you would want to get access to those assets. So make sure that your plan is going to deny access to the wrong people. So to recap those 4 questions, does your plan empower somebody to act on your behalf with specificity for them to be able to know how best to act based on what your personal interests would be? Number 2, does your plan ensure that the assets go to the right people? Number 3, is it going to go to those people at the right time? And number 4, is it going to make sure that assets don't pass to the wrong people? So those are the questions to ask before you even really kind of get into the process of starting to draft up documents, things like that. Sit down with a piece of paper, make sure you can answer all 4 of those questions before you even go further, because that's when you need to kind of get a pretty good handle on that, because the answers to those questions are going to dictate what types of documents you're actually going to need for your estate plan. So we often, and certainly in episodes in the past, we've talked about estate planning here on Dollars and Cents. These were interesting questions in that they're really questions that you have to really have answered beforehand in order to make the right choices inside of the various documents that you can have to implement your estate plan. So some important stuff there. Similarly, do you know where all your retirement funds are? That's a pretty important question, right? And the answer is, maybe not. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But it's estimated that approximately 24 million forgotten 401ks are floating around out there. Total value of those 24 million 401ks, $1.3 trillion. It's a lot of money, a lot of accounts. We're going to tell you what you need to do to double check and track down those forgotten accounts. And then once you find them, what you need to do to make sure they remain a part of your overall retirement picture. So welcome on in here to Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. One of Central Florida's longest running radio programs, coming to you on a host of stations throughout the Central Florida region. Also a top 25 financial planning podcast as well. So make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Any trouble getting in touch with us, go to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. There you will find links to the channels and also a way to schedule an absolutely free conversation with us. My name is Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary at Nelson Financial Planning, where we got a team of great folks who happen to be certified financial fiduciaries as well that stand ready, willing, and able to help you improve your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan. So, look, this statistic, 24 million forgotten 401ks with cumulative value in excess of $1.3 trillion, I can understand that to a certain extent, because in today's world, you know, why one might sort of lose track of one of those old 401ks. It's sort of easy to sort of understand, right? I mean, there's no such thing as a pension anymore, so there's not really an incentive to stay at the company for forever to earn that pension. So more often than not, people wind up changing jobs. In fact, if you look at, for those between ages 60 and 67, right in those sort of peak retirement years or years approaching retirement, by age 55, that age group will have already worked in over 12 different jobs on average, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that's a lot of different jobs during the course of your working history. The reality is that because there's no such thing really as pensions anymore, the impact of that is that it's now your money that you need to save, but also, you know, more likely to change jobs as well if you're not accruing a pension. So it's certainly easy if you think about 12 different jobs, right? It's not that hard to maybe lose track of one or so when you might have 12 outstanding out there. So we're going to talk about the 2 things that you can do to help get on top of this. So that you can make sure that it's not you that has one of those forgotten 401k accounts out there. So we'll do that when we return here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning. So let's repeat that statistic that we were talking about just prior to the break. Estimated 24 million forgotten 401k accounts out there, holding assets in excess of 1.3 trillion. Look, we understand how that could happen. In today's world, if you're between 60 and 67, on average, you've held over 12 different jobs. Easy to forget one of those 12 that had an employer-sponsored plan. Maybe you've sort of forgotten about that along the way. The days of pensions are over, so it's not like people stay at the same place forever and ever. More likely to change jobs. The reality is, though, that is your money, and that can be a big part of helping you achieve your ability to retire successfully, particularly if these accounts are floating around out there. Now, the good news, I guess, on this that is designed to sort of make life a little bit easier for people is that if you think back to the most recent retirement legislation that passed a couple of years ago, it's called Secure 2.0. It did a bunch of different things. One of the things that it also did is established a new searchable database on the Department of Labor website to help you look for lost retirement savings accounts. That's the good news. The bad news is, sadly, it's still a few years out before they actually create that searchable database. So what can you do now to try and locate these funds? Because if there's 24 million forgotten 401k accounts out there, chances are one of them might be yours. So step one is to be diligent on really backtracking through your work history. Reach out to those prior employers just to verify if there was or there still is an employee account under that employer qualified plan. The reality is that the custodians of employer provider plans change on such a frequent basis that you really may not have been able to sort of track through the system, if you will, in order to still be getting statements and the like on these accounts, because those custodians really do change on a regular basis. Now, if the company you work for is no longer around, which can certainly happen, then you probably do want to go, at least in terms of where to start that due diligence to try and track it down, is you do want to go over to the Department of Labor website. And there you can search for a particular company's Form 5500, which that form will list the contact information for that particular employer's plan. Now, the Form 5500 is sort of like a tax return, if you will, that an employer is required to file annually with the Department of Labor each year if they sponsor a retirement plan. So that's where you can go to kind of, if you need to do a little bit of investigative work on an old employer. So that's step one, to really take the time to do the investigation to track down where those old employer plans might very well be. Sort of the step one is to find it, if you will. Step two is how you take control of it, right? So, and here's the warning. Obviously, these are retirement accounts, right? So that means that you got to do it properly. Otherwise, it's taxable. Or if you're not of a certain age, and that's 59 and a half, then you could also pay a penalty for early withdrawal as well. So generally, once you've found the money, the process of taking control of that is usually you got a couple of choices. So choice one is to roll it over to your current plan with your current employer, right? So now you know where it is. It's with my current employer. There's limitations to that. I don't necessarily love that option because you're still staying right inside that employer orbit. And then you've got to, when you change jobs again, then you've got an old employer retirement account that is sitting out there. And most of the investment options in employer qualified plans are relatively limited. A lot of target date stuff, which isn't particularly great one way or the other. So certainly important to think about that as an option. The preferable option, in our view, is to roll it over to an IRA. Now, an IRA, that stands for Individual Retirement Account. That means you, the individual, now have full control over the money. It's not dependent upon an employer. It's not dependent upon the employer making decisions to change providers, change custodians, move it over to another company, all of those kinds of things. That, in our view, makes it a better choice because you, the individual, are controlling it. And the reality is that if your next employer doesn't offer a qualified retirement plan, you can in fact use that to do your own funding into your retirement. So make sure that you're not one of those 24 million forgotten 401k accounts. Make sure one of those is not yours. Take the time to really kind of do the due diligence and track down those outstanding accounts, particularly when it relates to employer plans. That is for sure. So let's see here. Another packed show here in the aftermath of Milton. Part of me was a little surprised as to whether we might be able to do the show, but fortunately back up with power and internet and all of those kinds of things. Certainly hope you and yours were able to stay safe and make progress on your cleanup. Well, we started the show talking about the rash of stolen IRS refund checks that are getting stolen out in the mail. Just another problem with when you get when you request a paper check when it comes to your IRS refund. It comes to you much slower than direct deposit, and it's got a higher risk of actually getting stolen. The reality, of course, is that as we like to comment, IRS pretty much knows everything about you anyway, so I'm not sure that I worry about sharing my bank account information. The real problem is once you elect to get a paper check, there's no way to reverse that on that particular tax year. So you can't say, okay, I'll take the paper check, and then when the paper check doesn't come, all right, fine, direct deposit it. No, that is not an option. The option that you selected on the initial filing is the option that you will always have as it relates to that tax year. No opportunity as of yet. Now, there's talk of giving folks the opportunity to maybe change that at some point, but that is still years away. So the importance of doing direct deposit. Also, the importance of those 4 key questions that we were talking about that you really need to answer beforehand when it comes to your estate planning. Does your plan empower someone to act on you? But more importantly, does it give specificity and the parameters of which they are supposed to act? Remember the Terry Schiavo case? We were talking about that earlier in the program. That's one of the ones that really, I think, highlights that issue and why it's important to answer those questions ahead of time. Similarly, make sure your assets are going to the right people, right? You want them to go to the right people. Next, you want to make sure that they're going to those folks at the right time. And then lastly, that they're not going to the wrong people. And that could be a host of people ranging from the IRS in terms of estate tax or income tax to creditors, liability, ex-wives or ex-husbands or whatever the case may be. So make sure that you answer those questions before you set down the path of creating estate documents, because your answers to those questions are going to determine the types of documents that you're going to need to have a successful estate plan. So certainly one of those things that is vitally important to remember, much like remembering to vote for us for the best of Winter Park as well is also vital to remember that. You've got until October 11th to vote for us for the best of Winter Park and hosted by the Winter Park Chamber of Commerce. Certainly that is something that is coming up very soon. Matter of fact, let me look at the date. Today's the 13th, so that actually voting ended on Friday. So for those of you who voted for us, we appreciate that. My goodness, wow, how did we get this deep into October? Anyway, with that, we're going to wrap it on up and get on out of here. This, of course, has been Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We're here to help in any way we can. So if you think we might be able to help you, check out our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. There you can schedule an absolutely free conversation with us. And yes, we have those conversations free of charge. Not only are they free, but we do not have account minimums. We believe our job is to help you wherever you might be on your financial journey, whether you're just starting out or whether you are a week away from retirement. We're here to help no matter where you are. With that, we're going to wrap it on up and get on out of here. This has been Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning.